Namaste and greetings. I, Bhanvi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI hashtag Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for day 2 of a 4-week online certificate training course on ending violence against women, awareness of laws and policies in India. This training program is organized by the IMPRI Gender Impact Study Center, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. This course will be chaired by Professor VIBHUTI Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. The convener for this course is Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and editorial director at IMPRI, and master trainer for the course is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, advocate, author, and researcher, gender and human rights, and visiting senior fellow, IMPRI. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise in this course for these 4 weeks. The distinguished expert panel includes Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Dr. Kirti Bulinini, Professor Vijay Lakshminanda, Advocate Selin Thomas, Ms. Anju Dubey Pandey, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Ms. Nandini Sarkar. I welcome you all to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for putting your time, energy, and efforts into truly understanding the need related to the issues of gender equality, gender rights, and violence against women, and looking into the dimensions of laws and policies in India concerning this issue, and thus helping us to bring together the practitioners, scholars, and participants for impactful policy research and bringing various remedies and action. We have also shared the study material and course outline via email on the topic related to gender violence for better perusal and understanding. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Our discussion for day 2 will revolve around the theme of violence against women and legal safeguards and other measures. Today, we will have special remarks by Dr. Ranjana Kumari ji, a training class by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, who will discuss legal safeguards and constitutional rights against violence against women, followed by the expert session by Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, who will be discussing on substantive equality, a constitutional safeguard for women. Now, without further any ado, I would like to invite the chair for our course, Professor VIBHUTI Patel ji, to start the session with her opening remarks, following which we will start today's session. Looking forward to learning from the enlightening deliberation. Over to you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Good afternoon, friends. First of all, I would like to thank the IMPRI team for this putting together this course. Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, today's chief guest, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, today's resource person and panelist, Dr. Albertina Almeida, and Dr. Shalu Nigam. First of all, I think the course started with Big Bang because last time we had 2 major presentations. One was an overarching concern and the intervention strategies of women's movement over the last 45 years and the varied forms of protest and the series of legal reforms that we had. And Dr. Shalu Nigam also explained the legal aspects as well as the legal provisions to address gender-based violence. It was responded by massive questioning and interventions. We had more than 40 questions and interventions. And the major concern of the participants who are basically working on this issue, either as NGO members or as a legal luminaries or researchers or working in the think tank at a policy level. So they are very much familiar with the issue. What they wanted to know was processual dimensions, how to at a ground level, how to use the intervention strategy, how do we write the FIR, how do we approach police, how do we approach the legal system, which are the best practices with the different organizations and the campaigns have done. Have they been result oriented or not? After the intervention, have the survivors, the victims become survivors, survivors had empowerment? So these are the queries that we
of course,
in the process, and that's why it became very lively. The discussion was very lively, and I think today also we are going to have extremely interesting discussion, because all of them are practicing in the field of gender-based violence as legal luminaries as well as feminist activists. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Ranjana Kumari ji for a special remark. Ms. Ranjana Kumari, a renowned social activist and a prolific academician, Dr. Ranjana Kumari is the director of Center for Social Research as well as chairperson of Women Power Connect. She has dedicated her life to empowering women across the South Asia region and is also a writer of many well-known publications. She has served as the coordinator of the South Asia Network Against Trafficking in Persons and is a member of the Central Advisory Board on Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Tests, Act 2001, as well as the Center Advisory Committee for Prevention of Trafficking in Women and Children. Some of her most passionate causes have been the participation of women in democracy and governance, the termination of dowry practices and dowry-related violence, and the abolition of female feticide. She has been facilitated for her contribution made towards the empowerment of women by the President of India, Gyani Jail Singh, with the honor of the Nation Award in 1990. We are honored to have you with us, ma'am, this evening, and we thank once again for your presence. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by congratulating IMPRI for really running this course. It is very brave, I must say, because today, with the way the situation is in the country as well as globally about violence against women. Can you all hear me? Show your thumbs up,
yes,
because it's just you can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so lots of good wishes, Dr. Dr. Kumar, and also, of course, to Vibhuti, who has always been pioneering in terms of whatever in gender, feminism, in terms of women's studies, whatever is at the moment going on. You can see her constantly, making efforts to make people understand, realize, also academically and practically, in terms of her own activism. So thank you very much. Let me start by saying that what we are going to talk about, it is not just women's issue. What we are going to talk about it not only to be addressed by women. Unfortunately, women have been on the panel. All the women are on the panel, and plus most of the, I think almost all the participants in the course are women. This is the tide we have to turn. Like, we have to really bring society, men and boys, to understand that this is an issue which is not just of women, and women are not only supposed to be addressing this issue, but as a society, because it is affecting everyone if it is affecting women. So that's, I would say. So with this, very good evening to everyone. And I'm going to talk about this whole prevalent issue, which is not just in India, but across the world. Violence against women is something which has been a matter of concern for a long time, and while there has been progress, there is still a long way to go. Violence against women is a global issue, as we all know, issue, and recognized as a violation of human rights and public health problem by the UN and WHO. So it's not just really, that's why I'm saying it's not just the problem of women to be addressed by women, but it is a problem which is of the way our society is structured, the way patriarchy functions, the way misogyny really is, in a way trying to control women's bodies and their future, everything that they do. So it's really much larger issue than just, so that's my first point. It includes physical, sexual, emotional, and economic abuse, which also has severe consequences for women's physical and health. Violence against women affects women. Look at it from a sectional oppression. How not only people who get affected, but also forms of oppression, because it's not just one single way that women are that also needs to be looked from the intersection perspective. Now, it also has significant economic consequences. Men and boys can help prevent violence against women by challenging harmful gender stereotypes and promoting gender equality. Survivors, so that's why I think there is a very big role now, and also the tide has to turn. And it's not only that we talking about ourselves and our issues, and but also get men and boys to come around. Now, also the other thing is, what can we use as prevention? So far, we are looking at prevention in many different ways that we are trying to do in our own way, in our own institutions, as well as Government of India, and many other many other efforts have been made for prevention. But I think survivor-centered prevention and response efforts, and also it needs a lot of cooperation, nationally, internationally, between agencies, by agencies, and changing societal attitude, which is very crucial to address violence against women comprehensively. So it's not going to work unless we are going to work on all these different fronts. In India, there are several legal safeguards and other measures that have been put in place to prevent and address violence against women. So it's not that we have not addressed this issue, but now we'll have to see how adequately we are addressing it, and how it is going to really, how it is, what kind of impact it is making on controlling violence against women, or eradicating. I would not say this control is not going to work. We have to really eliminate all forms of violence against women. So we do have lots of legal safeguards. One of the most significant measures in the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, it was the Domestic Violence Act of 2005. You all must know that how much we all struggled. We were on the streets. We were, pulled and pushed by police. We were taken to police stations. So much fight went on between us and the state, to impress on the state for the protection of women from domestic violence. And that's when the act came. And I remember having lobbied a lot for this act. We had a joint meeting in the Parliament Annex, where we, Girja Vyas was that time the chairperson of the National Commission for Women. We got the parliamentarians, and then Action India, I must remember Gauridi. They brought almost like we all together had pulled 10 lakh signatures. Everything was there to, so we said we agree with whatever is the format, and Parliament members should come forward and start. But we were very fortunate that on that day, something happened to the leader of opposition. Some kind of economic offense issue was raised. There was not much debate, and the act was passed in 2005 in the Parliament. And again, successive, I think, month or something like that, it was passed also in the lower house. So this act, what does it do? This act provides legal protection and remedies for women who are victims of domestic violence. It includes provisions for protection or protection order. So that's one thing. I think, as Vibhuti was in the beginning saying, that people want to know. So this act really provides everything, actually, in a way, because also this is in the civil domain. So it's one protection order, residence order. A lot of women ask, they're throwing us out of the house. Where should we go? No, that's your home, and you have to just get a residence order to stay in that home. And also, of course, monetary relief for the victim. Now, other than this, the Indian Penal Code has several provisions that criminalizes various forms of violence against women, including rape, sexual harassment, stalking. We do have a law which also protects women in terms of sexual harassment, stalking, and acid attacks. The Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013, which was passed in response to the Delhi gang rape, Nirbhaya, you know how much we all fought for this law, you know, starting from India Gate, four nights of those cold December winter. I remember, you know, how badly I felt sick after that. But, you know, it was so much a fight by everybody. And that's the time when I had a lot of hope that men and boys will join this movement, because it was filled with all people, all kinds of, you know, background people. Everybody was there demanding justice for Nirbhaya. So anyway, so we got that law after the Delhi gang rape, and of course introduced several amendments to strengthen the existing laws related to violence against women since then. Apart from legal safeguards, there are also several other measures that have been taken to prevent and address violence against women. And you all know, as you know, we've been talking about Nirbhaya Fund and other things. One such measure is the establishment of one-stop crisis center. I must tell you that some of our generation women who went to visit other countries to see what they are doing, and we were so impressed by Bangladesh's effort to have one-stop crisis intervention center, means that you will get in one center all services available. So you don't have to run to police station, to hospital, to the doctor, you know, for any kind of test and any kind of treatment. You don't have to go and find a lawyer, legal aid. Everything will be in one stop. I don't think we have really implemented it in the same spirit, but certainly we have violence, the one-stop crisis intervention centers across the country. Now, I think I've heard in a recent statement by the government that they have about hundreds of centers. I still have to kind of, you know, study them. These centers provide medical, legal, and counseling support at the moment, the one which we have set up to victims of violence. There are also several campaigns and initiatives that have been launched, other than having the law, legal framework, and institutional arrangement to raise. We have had these campaigns and initiatives to raise awareness about violence against women and to change societal attitudes towards women. You know, recent Abhiyan, which we were also nodal agency for Haryana, the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign, for instance, aims to improve the status of girls and women in India through education and empowerment. I'm very happy about another thing, that we are doing a lot of sports for, you know, changing the image, using the sports as an entry point to change the image for a girl, that she's not a weak, she's not, you know, someone who, sorry, can be easily exploited, but someone who has her own power as a sports girl. And so many girls have really, you know, are shining in, and we all are taking a lot of pride in them. So that's another approach or entry point to change and to raise awareness. However, despite these measures, violence against women continues to be a pervasive problem in India. One of the reasons, you know, just recent Family Health Survey came up with the data saying that is Family Health Survey 5, that every third woman experiences some or the other form of violence. One of the reasons for this is the lack of implementation of these laws and measures. Some of us who are working in the field, trying to help women, know how difficult it is to, even now, even, you know, today's day and date, that going to a police station, trying to get justice out of the courts, you know, and now a new trend has started where everybody is blaming women, you know, and they are all the time trying to find fault. So victim blaming has become kind of a very, very getting normalized in our society. And we have to fight back about that, you know, you have to trust what women are saying instead of saying that she's telling lies, she's making stories. So I think that's very important, that, you know, victim blaming has to, and that is why laws are not being effectively implemented. Now, the violence against women, also the other problem is underreporting. I mean, look at the rural areas. Do you think a lot of people are reporting from there? Do we have data from rural areas? When you look at the National Crime Records Bureau data, then you see that, you know, not much rural area reporting is happening. So underreporting is common and all over the country. That is why our data remains. And also, to top it all, when I was traveling in UP, I was also told by a lot of women organizations and even police personnel, that, we have to keep the reporting low. What does that mean? That UP should not figure as one of the higher crime against women state. So these are some of the things that we have to challenge, question, and try to find out. Many cases of violence against women also, because legal system fails, I would say justice delivery system as such is not really providing justice to women victims of violence. And I can say is this with some sense of responsibility. Another reason for the persistence of violence against women is the societal attitude towards women. As I said, many people in India still hold patriarchal, misogynistic beliefs, which perpetuates violence against women. To address this issue, it is important to not just enforce the laws, but also to work towards the changing societal attitude towards women. We have to work on every front. We can't just look at legal framework and say that now we are protected because we have the law. I want to here just tell you really about something about one of my, someone who I admired, someone whose writings I have read very extensively, and someone I think who gave the right perspective to the women's movement globally is Simone de Beauvoir. Now, she was a feminist philosopher who wrote extensively on gender. Her work focused more on the social construction of femininity and women's position in society, though she did not specifically address violence against women. I was trying to find, but there's nothing very specific that she has written about violence against women in writings. However, she did write extensively about women's oppressive and the need for women to have equal rights and opportunities as men. One of her famous quotes, and I want to quote here, in fact, another quote that I'm very fond of is that, you cut the wings of a bird and you tell her, oh, she can't fly. This is, I'm sure Vibhuti will share this with me, that I've talked about this quote so many times that I literally feel that you cut the wings and you tell, oh, she doesn't know, women don't know, women can't, perform, women are not good at work, women are this, women are that. You blame her when you have already cut her wings. Anyway, this is another quotation where women's oppression is not born, but rather becomes a woman. And this whole socialization theory that we came up with, and we said from women to gender, I think this is the thought which influenced it, which emphasizes the idea that gender is a societal social construct and not a biological given. So, don't ever get into this whole thinking. And a lot of writing I have read of late, unfortunately, talk a lot about women being weak, women are not able to defend themselves. Even when reporting happens, people say, oh, women must learn martial arts so that they can beat them up, and all kinds of things. But that's a very wrong way. That's a very, you are looking at it within the patriarchal framework. So I think I'm over crossing my time. I can see that I have done more than 20 minutes. So in conclusion, violence against women is a serious issue, and it requires a multifaceted approach to address. While legal safeguards and other measures are important, I don't undermine them. We fought for them, and we have been very state-focused and state-centric in our struggle for women's empowerment in India. Because for everything we ask for a law, we ask for a state institution, we ask for but it is equally important to work towards changing societal attitude towards women. Only then can we hope to create a society where women are safe and treated with respect and dignity that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for such an enriching and a thrilling session, and for taking out your precious time, as well as sharing your valuable experience with us. We are indeed very grateful, ma'am. So before moving to the Q&A session, I would like VIBHUTI ma'am to share her views with us.
Ranjana ji has really provided a very important perspective, and it comes from her grassroots level involvement like us. We have been in the journey of women's movement right from the early 70s. I think the important lessons from her speech have been one, that we need to continue the campaign, very important, and see to it that justice and demand accountability of the justice system. We need to change the societal view and also the ideology of victim blaming, which currently is happening more all in court, also in court and in the community. I think we need to counter that. We need a very robust data system to address, create the structures and mechanisms for addressing gender-based violence. One-stop crisis center, it came like even before at an experimental level, it came nearly 20 years back, even before the law. In fact, the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act was based on the participatory action research of the Vilasa project for 10 years. But what we see, its replication is not happening in a big way. We also need gender responsive budgeting. And we know that what the Nirbhaya Fund, which was allocated nearly 1,000 crore rupees, right from 2013 remains largely unutilized. So it is not that we don't have resources. We have resources, but it's a question of the political will of the bureaucrats and the governance structures. I have been to the gender resource centers of several state governments where the principal secretary would say that if we start one-stop crisis center, our women will start running away and the institution of family will break. So if this is the attitude of IAS officers, you can imagine how would they use their power to create the support system. So I think we have a long way to go, and it's a violence against women, and the campaign is a work in progress. But I think Ranna ji has given us a very important insight and very realistic understanding of the challenges that we are facing collectively. And I think most important message she gave, that there should be men and boys should be involved in our campaign on violence against women. And we should especially seek participation of men in such discourses. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now let's move to the Q&A session. I would request Renu Singhal ji to unmute herself and ask her question.
Renuji, no problem. Yes, Renuji, go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to know more info about one center crisis that you were talking about.
One-stop crisis.
Thank you. We have one more question by Charuji, similar question. Charuji, yeah,
Yeah,
please.
hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Charuji.
Is there
So I when I reported about physical assault, the one center stop had a poster in the police station, and the police inspectors said that they just counsel you. They don't do anything. They don't even have resources. They just have like a room, and like it just seemed very vague. And there were other women at the same police station. There was one rural woman whose husband would beat after alcoholism, and I don't remember exactly how many times she has been, but maybe 3 to 4 or 8 times she has come there, and the police just counsels her like, everything will be fine, just go home, and we can't do anything about it. And I reported the case, and they just they did not do an FIR. They did take my complaint, but it was not an FIR. So whatever you're, ma'am, whatever you have been telling us about, I don't know which system are you talking about, what is in place, and it just sounds very vague. And I appreciate all the struggles you have made and all the riots you have done over from 70s, but I don't see any benefit of it right now.
Okay, I think, can I answer this, or you want to collect more questions?
One more question, ma'am, by Prerna.
Okay, okay.
Prerna Saikya?
Ji, Prerna ji, you can unmute and ask. No problem. Bhanvi, can you read it out? The question by Prerna ji.
Sure. So the question is, what do you think about the gender gap in the Indian justice systems and legal scenario, as many laws and gender verdicts are still handled by the majority that happens to be men?
Ma'am, over to you, Ranjana.
Okay, so I think very good question in terms of police didn't respond, and this what are we talking about? I think we're talking about failing systems, justice delivery system. I am all the time saying that. We are, in fact, we did a research also, a brief study to say what women experience at the police station, and which is very close to what you are saying. So in no way we are saying that the system is so sensitive that when you walk into the police station, police responds. No, police, in fact, that's what precisely I was saying, that police starts blaming the woman, and then if not that, they will just say, oh, go home, everything will be all right. Or even if they write the cases, in our own experience, we have if sometime I invite you to come to our center, see that, we have dealt with, I don't know by now how many, maybe thousands of cases, but of course, few hundred post-COVID, we have dealt with the cases. And I can tell you that these women are not really anywhere close to getting justice, in spite of all our effort trying to help them get legal aid, or to at least pro bono lawyers and trying to get their case. So really, and there was the law that was created, that is Domestic Violence Act. This was to give justice within 60 days. In fact, when we were drafting that piece of legislation, I remember there was a big discussion that, can you really impose a timeline on the courts, because our courts go on and on and on. So 60 days were really written there as that the judgment should come. Some kind of action court must take. But how many cases have you ever heard that, comes as death? I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you that what is failing us is not the legal framework. What is failing us is not the effort from the women's side. What is failing us is the insensitive justice delivery system, whether it is Thana, whether it is, courts, whatever. I mean, like so I totally agree with that. And also I sympathize with your experience, because our experiences are the same as you are talking about, even sitting in Delhi, even knowing a lot of people who have worked with us as senior police officers, every possible connection we have, but doesn't really work. And when it comes to really giving immediate justice to women or quick dispensation of justice. Now, the other thing is about gender gap in legal. I think it's very obvious. We all know. I mean, how many judges are there in the Supreme Court of India, in the high courts, in the local courts? How many women? But you see, let me tell you one more thing, that just by having women judges and magistrates and others, of course, it will make a difference. But now I'm reworking on this whole idea. Will that change how women get justice? Certainly, it will change, because there'll be more women's perspective. But then there are such women sitting in these positions who've internalized patriarchy, and then you see that they behave in the same way. Then you think, no, just by changing so what is important is also to inculcate gender perspective, even in the existing team of people, because they're not allowing many women to come in. So certainly we are missing in terms of having more judges, more magistrates, more women who are sitting in the justice system. Anything else?
No, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so with this, are we closing the session?
Yes. Vibhuti ma'am, would you like to add anything?
Just like to say that the 6 states currently have allocated resources for one-stop crisis center. Bombay's one-stop crisis center started 30 years back, which is called Dilasa. And now we have a 13 hospital-based one-stop crisis center, which are in the casualty ward of the hospital, municipal hospitals, which are like 1,200 beds, 800 beds, 2,000 beds. So large hospitals. In that it is there. Our organization Sehat, that works with this one-stop crisis center, and we have started capacity building training also. After NFH's 5 data, many state governments approached Sehat, and the capacity building of the hospital staff, hospital medical superintendent, and the doctors has been happening, so that how can the hospital become the center. Andhra Pradesh is a different model. It is a community-based one-stop crisis center. And the budgetary allocation was very high, because when the act was passed, Madam Renuka was the first Minister of Women and Child Development Ministry. And they saw to it that DV Act was backed by budgetary allocation. The most problem is that violence against women comes under centrally sponsored scheme. So if the center gives 60% this thing, then state has to shell out 40%. If center gives, union territories get 100% support of a center. They are called central scheme. But wherever you have a centrally sponsored scheme, state also has to allocate matching grant, which most of the states are not doing. That is why notionally one-stop crisis center has been accepted as 100 by one-stop crisis centers all over India, but actually functioning center, because even when it was at a participatory action research stage, the budget was 1.5 crore per year in only one hospital, because the way DB Act defines it, we have to provide support, counseling, medical aid, whatever injuries. If a bone is broken, then the bone treatment, eyes are injured, surgery is required, everything is borne under the Act. Then the shelter home, emergency shelter home. If she has a child, then the child's requirements and the shelter home, that is, and the criminal justice system, and networking with the police and the justice system, all comes under the purview of DB Act. And that's why the service providers have a major role. And unless service providers are adequately backed by funding, you would not see that kind of, even the salary of protection officer, from where will it come? Because you need to provide for that also under the Act. So I think we need to see to it that that money should not be just parked in the ministry. It also get channelized for the functioning of a one-stop crisis center. That is very important. So I think all of you, all the participants, because all of you are in the field, so you will also have to energize and galvanize your state governments into action. So that the provision, the law, as well as the allocation which is made to address violence against women is used. You should also creatively tell your state governments and union territories that how Nirbhaya Fund, why states after states not sending any proposal for Nirbhaya Fund. Only 6 states are making proposals, sending proposals, and they also 40 to 60% utilization. So I think we need to, we all have to join our forces to make the system work. Thank you, Rannaji.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti ji. Thank you, IMPRI, for launching such a wonderful program. I want to see many more such things which are focused so that we can understand every aspect and dimensions of the issue. And I think it's very, very important that all the course participants should, kind of at the end of the course, maybe define or carve out some kind of a project which they should take upon themselves so that they can really experience the whole thing as a first hand, what they are learning in theory. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. So we will play a poem shared by a participant, then we move to Albertina ma'am's session.
मैं सोचती हूँ कि जब उन्होंने अपने जीवन में मारपीट सहन किया, गाली गलौज सहन किया, तो क्यों वो मुझ पे वही ढाती है? जब उन पे सालों तक जबरदस्तियां की गई, बंदिशें लगाई, चरित्रहीन खा गया, तो क्यों वो मुझसे ये सब फिर से दोहराती है? जब उन पे हाथ उठाया, उन्हें उसका दर्द मालूम है, तो वो क्यों मुझे चाटे मारती रही? वो रंडी सुन के उनका दिल सहम जाता है, तो क्यों मुझसे वो बार बार पूछती कि मैं रंडीबाजी तो नहीं कर रही? जब वो अपने बदन के निशान, अपने जिस्म के निशान ताउम्र अपने दिल में सहज कर चलती, तो क्यों वो मुझसे मारपीट गाली गलौज करती? जब ड्राइवर चौकीदार के साथ नाजायज संबंध होने के आरोप लगाए और वो किरकिरा जाती, तो क्यों वो मुझसे पूछती कि मैं घर के दूसरे सदस्यों के साथ सोती तो नहीं? जब उनका व्हाट्सएप रोज रात 10 से 12 बजे चेक किया जाता अफेयर ढूंढने के लिए, वो मैसेज डिलीट करती, दूध वाले का नंबर अनसेव करती, उनके भेजे गुड मॉर्निंग मैसेजेस डिलीट करती, तो क्यों हर बार मेरे पलटते से मेरा व्हाट्सएप चेक करती? जब उन्होंने मुझे शिक्षा इस मायने से दी कि कल पैसे कमाएगी, जॉब करेगी, जो उन्हें करने नहीं दिया, तो क्यों मेरी शादी के लिए पूछती कि जॉब करने देने वाला लड़के से शादी करेगी या नहीं? जब वो अपने सपने को मेरे जीवन से जोड़ती, तो क्यों मेरी सैलरी मेरे पति से कम होनी चाहिए? क्यों मुझे पीएचडी करने की परमिशन अपने होने वाले इन लॉ से मांगनी होगी? क्यों मुझे प्यार का आवाज बेटी पैदा करके मिलेगा और बेटी होकर नहीं? क्यों मुझे सड़क के बीच में रात के अंधेरे में 27 साल की लड़की को घसीटना सही है, और आपके गले दबाने पर, अटेम्प्ट टू मर्डर पर भी पुलिस की जगह नाखून के निशान और उनसे निकला खून छुपाने के लिए हॉस्पिटल जाना सही है? आपके जीवन में नहीं मिली आजादी वेस्टर्न कपड़े पहनने की, रेस्टोरेंट जाकर महंगा खाना खाने की, तो मैंने अपने हिस्से की आजादियां छीन के आपको दी, अपने कपड़े दिए, मेरे नाम पे सेलिब्रिटी जाके सिजलर खाते थे, इतना सपोर्ट किया आपके मास्टर्स के लिए, लोगों के लाख सुनाने के बाद भी अनेबल यू टू लर्न टू ड्राइव अ स्टूपिड कार। आपकी पसंद के लिए दादी पापा चाची सबसे लड़ ली, और आज जब मैं अपनी आजादी की जंग जीत के अपनी कहानी खुद लिखने लगी, तो आप मुझे फिर उसी गटर में खींच के डालने में दुनिया जुट कर रखी है। मेरे दोस्तों से लेकर एम्प्लॉइज तक सबसे मुझे ट्रैक करने की कोशिश की, और किस लिए? क्योंकि आपने तो घोंसला छोड़ना नहीं, और मुझे उड़ते हुए देखना जाने क्यों आपको पसंद नहीं।
We can move on to the next session.
So our next expert for today's session is Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida G. She is a lawyer and a human rights activist in Goa. She will discuss on the topic of substantive equality, a constitutional safeguard for women. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So I will speak about the safeguard of substantive equality as enshrined in the Constitution of India. But before I do that, I also can see that there is a concern that, there is all this, there are all these laws, there is the concept, even this, whatever I will be talking about. And we all know that way we have a right to equality, etc. But I guess the frustration is that, we have all this, and yet we don't see the results fully in reality. But I'd like to strike a note of optimism here, because yes, things are not as ideal as we want them to be, but if not for the steps that were taken for demanding laws, if not for the efforts that were made to ensure that the laws are implemented, if not for the efforts that were made for the constitutional provisions to be used, the subject or the other, we would not have even what we have. And there are some women who are getting justice, not ideal, but at least there are some. So I know we have a long way to go, but as I speak about the provisions, I'll also try to say how some of these provisions have been, the constitutional safeguard of substantive equality has been used to secure certain, certain rights for women, and it has been used in some situations. So I will move on from there. So here, as I said, the Constitution is like the steps towards all laws. It's kind of the mother of all laws, because whatever we are talking about, whether we're talking about the domestic violence law or the law to deal with sexual harassment, or whether we're talking of one-stop center, none of these can happen if the Constitution doesn't allow them to happen. So the Constitution actually provides that there can be special facilities or special provisions for women or for certain sections of women if there is a reason for those provisions. Okay, so it is not as if you cannot have a different law, because the Constitution is really saying And that's what essentially the principle of substantive equality is, that if all are not equal, you cannot treat all equals, you know, or as equal if all are not equal. So if some are unequal, you know, have an unequal status, then you cannot put them on the same par as those who have an equal status. It is something like a weighing scale. You see, now if the weighing scale is tilted, now you see, you cannot have, let's say, now if you want to bring the scale to the same level, you cannot have some, you know, say, let's say 2 kilos put on both sides saying, it's equality, so let us have 2 kilos on both the sides. It will remain with the same tilt, right? So therefore we need to have, you have to put a special weight on the side where it is not tilted in favor of that particular section. So therefore you will need to put a weight on this side so that it comes on par. So this is essentially the concept of substantive equality that is enshrined in the Constitution. But I will go on to tell you what exactly the provisions say. So, for example, the provisions relating to equality start with Article 14. And Article 14 provides that the state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. So it doesn't only talk about equality before the law, but it also talks about equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Now, equality before the law essentially is not something that I think that everyone understands, that if somebody, just because somebody is a rich man, he cannot be allowed to get away from the effects of the law, as in terms of the Constitution, I'm saying, from the effects of any law, because he's a rich man, and you know, he has perpetrated a crime, or because he enjoys political power and he has perpetrated a crime. It doesn't mean he should be able to get away from the law. That is what the Constitution is very clear about: equality before law. Now, this is the other principle that is enshrined in Article 14, and that is equal protection of laws. Now, what does equal protection of laws mean? It means there can be no arbitrariness. One, there has to be access to justice, and there has to be allocation of resources. Now, you were just talking about the one-stop crisis center, and we were saying that there has to be, you know, there are no resources, and you know, sometimes the states cry poverty, etc. But in my opinion, the way we can go ahead is, what invariably happens is that a lot of these one-stop crisis centers, or many of these other facilities, if one can say, for protection of women, are hinged on schemes. So those schemes are like, this scheme is this year and then it goes off next year, you know, and it's not, the schemes are not something that the assembly also may, you know, the state assembly or the parliament may discuss. They just come out with these schemes. Whereas if it's a law, it is first of all, if a one-stop crisis center is a part of a state infrastructure which should be there. It cannot be a scheme. So we have to say that there has to be allocation of resources for this center rightfully, and it has to be part of the infrastructure. See, for example, if you have people working for these various government departments, they are regular employees. There is a continuity. Here you have people employed on a contract system, first of all, and you have it as a scheme. So one of the things that can be done is to say that, yes, we need a one-stop crisis center because a lot of women face violence against women. And it's great that, you know, you've thought of it, but you can't have it as a scheme. It needs to be properly provided with proper infrastructure, and it has also to be provided with the personnel who have a certain, that will ensure a certain continuity to the center. So these are some of the things that we can say on the strength of this Article 14, where we are talking of equal protection of laws, because equal protection of laws must mean access to justice. So if you have a law, say for example, if you have a court which is like, not accessible, not physically accessible, for example, then what's the use of that court, right? You can't go to that court, or you can't access it. Then what's the use of a court? Yes, there is a court, but you can't use it. So same thing with, if there is no resources, then what is the use of having a system which doesn't have proper resources, a proper stability and continuity? So we have to catch hold of this Article 14 and try to insist. I don't say that necessarily the judiciary will respond and say, yes, you're right. But we have to try, because we have some precedents which have been set, due to which people today can enjoy some kind of access to resources. For example, if a woman goes to the police station, if she has faced a problem and of violence, and she goes to the police station, but she doesn't know what sections, under what sections to record that case, to register the case. She doesn't know how to go about it, maybe, or she's very, let's say, she's very disturbed. So then there is a judgment which was given as far back as 2004, which says that there should be assistance to this woman. Every police station must maintain a list of people that it can tap on to provide assistance to this woman. Now, that has come as a result of Article 14, which says that women must have access to justice, and they must have special access to justice, because they are not on par with men in terms of the realities and the context in which, in terms of the context that we see. So therefore, an access to justice would involve allocation of resources, which is why in various legislations, when the legislations are being introduced in Parliament or in the Legislative Assembly, you have something called a statement of objects and reasons, and you have something called a memorandum of what would be the financial allocation. So they can't simply say, we will have for example, if they had a law, they can't say we'll have a one-stop crisis center and then not have a budget for that one-stop crisis center, and a reasonable budget. Because it doesn't make sense if you don't have a budget, a reasonable budget. So in that financial allocation, they have to spell out that the one-stop crisis center would involve these XYZ professionals, administrative staff, infrastructure, etc. And it will require this kind of budget. And all this can be sort of escalated and demanded under, we can try to look for it under Article 14. Again, as I said, what we have to do is, the opening we have is to stretch the boundaries of the law. This has been done in the past, and we'll try to do that again. That is, in my humble submission, how we can try to use these constitutional safeguards. So as I said, we can sort of take shelter of this point about equal protection of laws, which means access to justice as well as allocation of resources. Now, why are we saying this is substantive equality, or it's also called equity in some ways? Because, as I said, you can't treat unlikes in a like manner. Because people are placed differently, you have to give special treatment to those who are placed on a lesser rung, on a lower rung. So there is a quote that I'd like to share with you in this context. It says, can you see it? In its majestic equality, the law forbids, this is a sarcastic one, okay? It says, in its majestic equality, the law forbids rich and poor alike to sleep under bridges, beg in the streets, and steal loaves of bread. Now, the point is, this sounds like equal, right? Because it forbids anyone from slipping under bridges. But what is the result The result is a homeless person who sleeps under the bridge will not even be able to sleep under the bridge. The rich person doesn't need to sleep under the bridge. So if there is a law that forbids, it's not affecting him because he doesn't need to sleep under the bridge anyway. So therefore, this kind of provisions also are problematic, where the result is different for a certain section, because the result is negative outcome for the poor person who is homeless, and the result, it has no bearing for the rich. So it is not taking care of anything. Same way with begging in the streets or stealing loaves of bread. A rich person doesn't need to steal loaves of bread. So there's no question of stealing loaves of bread. But a poor person might need to steal because he doesn't have anything to eat. So therefore, this law appears to be same because it says it forbids rich and the poor, but the result equality is different. Therefore, our constitution says the result equality has to be the same. Not just the provision, but the result. The result of this one, which seems equal, is an unequal result for the different sections. So here, in the context of substantive equality for women, even if there is a seemingly equal provision, we must make sure that what would be the result of this? What is its content? We have to look at it. In this context, I'd also like to say that many of us are even now talking about the Uniform Civil Code. And we say, okay, let it be equal for all religions. The same law. See, equality is not the same. Equality is different from sameness. So when we say it should be the same, it doesn't mean it's necessarily equal. And if, for example, you have a provision, let's say, even if you have a provision that, let's say, sons and daughters have equal rights to parental property. Now we know that the society looks at a woman as somebody who is going to be married away. You see, married away. So therefore, the parents will tend to find a way, if there is equal rights, they will tend to find a way to dispense with. It's a good thing that at least there are equal rights. I'm not saying no, but if you need to have special provisions to ensure that women are not forced to give up their rights, to relinquish their rights, because that is the social reality which we have to take into account. So there should be some kind of a safeguard, and that is possible with this concept of substantive equality and the constitutional safeguard. So nobody can say that if there is a law which provides special safeguards, that this is not right, it goes against the principle of equality, because our constitution talks of not just equality but substantive equality. It talks of equity. And so here, as I said, this is a picture from a book that was brought out long ago, many years ago, on laws and women. And here you have a stamp of patriarchy. I mean, symbolized by the shoe, but it's like, I mean, say a man stamping on the woman. And then how can she fight this situation if he has the same rights as her? She needs special rights to be able to, ensure that this foot doesn't come upon her, because the moment it comes on her, it will crush her. So you need special provisions also to prevent this situation. So that is why we have laws. We have laws, for example, on sexual harassment of women at the workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act. So it's about prevention as well. It's about ensuring, I mean, you will have, I suppose, special sessions on this. But just to say that, for example, there is the employers can be asked to ensure that their chambers have glass chambers, so that people cannot do something which amounts to sexual harassment. We can ask for some of these things because the situation is unequal for people in higher positions in an employment as against others. Excuse me. So therefore, we have to understand that all are not equally placed, and therefore you need special provisions. Now we are talking of equality in the Constitution under Article 15. We already talked of Article 14. Now we're talking of Article 15. So Article 15 says you shall not discriminate. Now, what does not discriminate mean? That the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Now, women may face discrimination as women, or they may face discrimination because of intersectionality. That means both as women and as belonging to a particular religion, race, caste, or hailing from a particular location, you know, the migrant women, for example, or any of them, or any one of them, or all of these multiple forms of discrimination women may face. And it is very clear that the state cannot be discriminating against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. The second part of this section article is, no citizen shall on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them be subjected to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, and places of public entertainment, or the use of wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads, and places of public resort, maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of the general public. Nothing in this, now this is a critical provision, that it says nothing in this article or in clause 2 of Article 29 shall prevent the state from making any special provisions for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward class of citizens, or for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. So essentially, there is the non-discrimination principle, no discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. There is the there is also the point that there shall be no disability, liability, restriction, or condition to be attached, which will, as a result of which some people cannot avail of a law. Now, here, when we are talking of approaches to equality, there are differences. So as I said, there are differences in how men and women experience life, and we should minimize the negative results of this. So there has to be result equality. We have to promote equality of outcomes. This is what we need to explore. How can we, how can the laws do this, and what kind of laws we need to have to ensure that we don't have laws that are same for women and men, but where there are special provisions that will take care of the hurdles that women face in accessing justice, of the hurdles that women face in naming their problem. Because very often, so many issues were dismissed earlier. For example, earlier, before 2013, there was, when women came and told us, for example, that, they're being followed by somebody, okay, continuously followed. He's not touching them. He's not making any gesture towards them. So it is not coming, it doesn't come as a sexual, it's not a crime, because it was not a crime, because there's no, there's no physical touch. There is no gesture, nothing. So now, what we used to try to see how we can use other provisions, like, disturbing the peace of the locality or something like that, what we call chapter cases, because there was no other provision. But because we have been speaking about it, because we have been saying that there are certain things that women specifically face, and it is in the nature of sexual harassment also, that over time it has been recognized, and today in the law, in the Criminal Law Amendment Act, you have a provision which says that this is called stalking, and stalking is a crime. It is a sexual offense under the law. So therefore, when we know that we can we can articulate our problems, and then try to find recognition for the specific problems that we face, we can seek that there should be remedies for that problem. Because If we say that there's a problem, and even if the problem is acknowledged, what is the use if there is no remedy for it? This is how, when it came to sexual harassment of women at the workplace, there were laws relating to rape, there were laws relating to molestation, but there was no specific law relating to sexual harassment at the workplace. So women said, first of all, in a workplace, it's bad enough that one is sexually harassed on the streets or somewhere else. But in the workplace, there's one more layer, that if the person is in a position of power in the workplace, the woman would stand the possibility of losing her job. If she speaks up, there is a possibility. So we needed a law which will make sure that she doesn't lose her job if she complains about sexual harassment at the workplace. So therefore, all this was articulated in the demand that it is not safe for women. Well, the workplace is not safe for women. It is a threat to women's right to work if women face sexual harassment at the workplace. And that is how the Vishaka judgment came about. And the Vishaka judgment drew on the constitutional principles of the various constitutional provisions. But again, the provision of equality is like a nodal right. It has its stamp on everything. So if we're talking of right to life, it has its stamp on that right to life as well. If you're talking of right to work, which is part of right to life, then it has its stamp on that as well. It doesn't mean that right to work means only men can work, right? So it means that women, transgenders, everyone has a right to work. So if their right to work is impaired by something, the state is liable and has an obligation to ensure that that doesn't happen. That is about the principle of substantive equality. So to cast obligation, that the state has an obligation to ensure that women are not left behind because of certain structural obstacles, or because of certain systemic obstacles, or because of certain historic situations. So this is the principle of substantive equality. So that is how these provisions have been used, and there have been, at least there are laws that at least some women have been able to avail of. It is true that more and more women from all sections of society should be able to avail of these laws. There has to be something done, but that is what we need to keep chiseling at the law and at the systems, and saying, yes, now we need this. You can't, this is not enough. Our constitution is governed by the principle of substantive equality. So that is how it goes. Now, I think is something that you all are aware of. So when we talk of substantive equality, you don't provide here. If you're talking, this is also equality, but this is where it is substantive equality, because here is a tall person, this medium-sized person, and the short height person, right? They all have the same stool. So this is equality, but this is not the kind of equality that makes any sense. This person can see without a stool. This person needs his stool, so that is retained. And this person needs an extra stool. So that is what is meant by substantive equality, providing the extra resources, providing the extra provisions in the law to make sure that people can access. This is notional. This is about watching a game, but it's about making sure that people can access justice. Okay. So now I would say that I have said that, if there is difference, then people need to be treated differently. So now I will pose a question to you, just as a breaker. Should we celebrate difference? What do you think? You can maybe unmute and say, should we celebrate difference? Anybody? You can raise your hand maybe and unmute. Raise your hand and then the organizers can unmute for you.
Yes, I think celebrating differences is important because we all have different capacities and accordingly the environment should be supportive of them.
Okay, that means it should be supportive of those who are less placed, right?
Yes.
But now let us, so every statement, I agree also with you that we should celebrate difference, but we should also, as I said, the purpose of this exercise that I'm giving is also now to look at various situations, because we are talking of equality in context. So let me just give you this, let us give one of you, any one of you can respond to this. Now, should we celebrate this difference? Should we celebrate this difference? Anyone?
No.
Who is that? Sorry. Can you say why not? Can you say why not? Anyone, please? No?
Ma'am, because these are, both of them are class apart. So the sewer cleaner is a lower class and the other gorgeous man is a class apart, he's a celebrity. So then the difference cannot be celebrated.
True. Yes. So, but while we do not celebrate the difference, we have to acknowledge that there is a difference. You're absolutely right. We cannot celebrate this difference. We cannot celebrate the fact that somebody is still having to do work like this. And here's this gorgeous man. We cannot be celebrating this difference. But we have to recognize this difference, because you have to do something for this to ensure that people don't have to work in these conditions, right? So therefore, we have to recognize the difference. There's a difference between recognizing difference and celebrating difference. There are some differences which can be celebrated, and there are some differences which cannot be celebrated, but which need to be recognized in order to make special provisions for them, which is what our constitution provides for. It says that likes cannot be treated, likes can be treated like, but unlikes cannot be treated as likes. Yes, people have to have equal protection of the laws. That's what it says. What about this difference? Celebrate, don't celebrate? I'm more focusing on dress. Anyone? Someone else from the group? No? No? No one else? Please raise your hand and answer. Don't worry, all of us have different ways of looking at something. You can answer. There's no.
Ma'am, I think here it can be celebrated, as in now once you have given the connotation of celebration, here it can be.
Okay. Okay. Yes, because she wears some different kind of dress. This woman wears a different kind of dress. Fine, that's difference, and there's nothing that is you know, unless she says that she's been oppressed and you know, forced to wear a particular dress. Yeah. So that's how it is. Now let me just give you.
But I have a question on the previous slide. What is the celebration about in this picture? When you say it can be celebrated, what is the celebration like? That's not clear.
Okay, so the celebration is the celebration is that the reason why we're talking of this is which differences can we recognize as something to, we have a diversity, and that diversity is something to celebrate, because it kind of complements everything that happens around, and we can celebrate this difference. We in the sense of I maybe not in a you know, in terms of semantics, maybe there could be an issue, but the point is, what we are saying is there's no problem with this difference. Okay, as against this difference where there's a problem with this difference. that somebody has to work even in these conditions. Here, there is no problem unless, as I pointed out, somebody is forced to wear either this dress or this dress. If they're forced to wear, then that is a difference that is socially, imposed, and therefore it's something that we should address. Otherwise, there is no problem with this difference. Yeah.
Difference, I guess, problem, if we are talking about problem with any difference, then I think that even slide number 14, there is no problem. There is a, that person is doing his work and that person is posing, maybe he's a model or whatever. So problem with the difference, I think difference celebration itself, I think if it is more clear, like what is the celebration reason, then it is like and I think that differences should not be celebrated. I might be completely wrong, but my opinion is differences has to be leveraged, and the synergy should be seen instead of celebration. Then in what context, clarity on that will be helpful.
Yeah. So here, as far as slide 14 is concerned, you see, this has been constantly reported that this today in the day and age when there is technology, you cannot have, because even if you talk of, there is no question of safe working conditions here. So even if you talk of safe working conditions, this thing is inherently unsafe in these sewers. So therefore there has been constantly a thing that we cannot have people having sewer cleaners anymore. So these are inhuman working conditions. So we cannot be under any circumstances celebrating it. Maybe I will stand to correction to say that maybe instead of saying celebration, that there is no problem with the difference. But in this case, there is a problem with the difference. There is no way that we can say there is no problem with the difference. This is just
I would like to, yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a gross violation of human rights. It is outlawed by the United Nations Human Rights Council. It is outlawed by 2013 law of our country. Manual scavenging is abhorrent and it is barbaric, and it has been outlawed by international community and the UN. So I think it is also unlawful to make a person just because of he's helpless and Dalit and we all know, all the studies have shown that nobody does such work entering into gutter willingly, no?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Vibhuti, and I completely agree. There is a problem. I mean, that picture itself, even in isolation or with, adding another picture to it, that I completely agree that this is unlawful. But because the title was "Celebrate Difference," so my perspective, my viewpoint was from that for that.
It was in the rhetoric, I think. Yeah. It was just a rhetoric. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So in this context, I mean, as Professor Vibhuti has said, this is also again a rhetoric. But I am raising this in the context of, because a lot of these things are also reaffirmed in political life. So I remember that when the Prime Minister, he said he has he talked of his 56-inch chest. So basically he was affirming that, macho-ness, that masculinity, which is something to kind of make him seem like a decisive person. And since 56-inch chest is associated with men, this was clearly a sexist, in a sense, a sexist claim. So on the other hand, the whole expectation. Again, I would request you maybe not take this, this captions. I'm just trying to pose this for thought-provoking, for provoking thought. So there is at one level there is this thing of the 36-inch chest. So the thing that a woman is expected to have a 36-inch chest. So these differences, why am I talking about these differences, is because I will lead on to the next thing, that because somebody is different now, because there has to be a reason to have a special law, not simply because somebody is different. Okay, there has to be that person is different and is disadvantaged by the difference, and therefore needs a special law because of that difference that that person bears. So therefore, I'm looking at these various categories to say that you may not need a special law when it comes to, let's say, for instance, if we are looking at this in the context of dress, you might not need a special law for this difference, but or you may, as I said, if it is imposed on somebody, if dress is imposed, but but in this context, you need and there are there are laws as well, but and they, if anyone were to challenge it, it has been said that it will not be stand the test of it will stand the test of the constitution, that it is outlawed. So here in this context also, this difference, this macho-ness, this expectation of women to have a particular size chest, these differences have been used to discriminate against women. Now here I will give you an example. You see, there was an advertisement for a post of police inspector. Okay, and it said, first of all, the advertisement here in Goa, I'm giving you an example. So the advertisement said that they prescribed first of all, they said police inspector male. You cannot have an advertisement for a post police inspector bracket male. You can have police inspector female because reservations for women are allowed, but you cannot have. So first of all, we challenged that. The second thing was, now, okay, we've gone past that challenge. Now, the point is that the criteria, you see, so there is difference due to the bust, etc. When it comes to women, and you had certain criteria for chest size. So those criteria could not have been met by women. So therefore, the point was that even though if it was said to be general, the criteria were discriminating, and those criteria had no rationale. You can have different criteria, but the thing is that those criteria, suppose, the particular size chest had no rationale with the job of police inspector. You can have, let's say, that for instance, if you have a particular job where you need a height, let's say, or something, then let's say you can maybe have a criteria like that, or if a criteria which specifies the specifications. But here it had no connection, no nexus with the employment. So we said, you cannot henceforth in your advertisements, if they are general post, you cannot have these physical prescriptions, because in other words, you're saying only men can apply, and there is no relevance also to those particular what shall we say, specifications. So the point is that this all gets normalized through political articulations of difference, and therefore we have to be mindful, and we have also to be mindful of which difference we have to take into account for the principle, for affirming the principle of substantive equality, for demanding special provisions, and which difference cannot be a difference for demanding special provisions. Now, and another thing is that difference cannot be a basis for discrimination. You cannot say, we cannot say, for example, that somebody, you're a woman, you're not a man, so so it is okay to discriminate against you because you're different. You can have positive discrimination, which is called affirmative action, special provisions. That is what, again, the principle of substantive equality speaks about. You cannot discriminate against somebody. Okay, so that, now this is the next article in the Constitution, which is Article 16, that there shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. No citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, residence, or any of them be ineligible for or discriminated against in respect or any employment or office under the state. Nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament from making any law prescribing in regard to a class or classes of employment or appointment to an office under the government, any requirement as to residence within prior to such employment or appointment. So basically, you can make special laws for special legal provisions for which you have, for example, labor laws. Within labor laws, there are special provisions because that's what it says. Nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament. So you can have special provisions which are not the same for men and women, but there has to be a good reason to have them. Or for a certain section of women, there has to be a good reason to have those provisions. So I will now move on to the next. Yes. Now, another thing I need to mention is that India has ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which promotes substantive equality. The CEDAW promotes substantive equality. So the moment India has ratified it, and also India's constitution speaks of substantive equality, and this provision is also compatible with India's, so whatever jurisprudence evolves through CEDAW can also be applied here. So there are two levels at which we can talk about substantive equality principle of CEDAW. One is in the enactment of laws. So in terms of equality of opportunity, in terms and access to the resources of a country, to be secured by a framework of laws and policies and supported by institutions and mechanisms for their operation. Okay, this is where we talked of the equality of opportunity in terms of resources, etc. That we gave the example, one-stop crisis center, for example. We can insist on this in terms of these provisions. The other is the implementation. This is where it would come to, for example, you see, if people went to the court, here's the whole question of access, effective access to justice. If the criminal justice systems at the police station, if a woman has nobody to turn to, if she's distressed and comes and nobody helps her, like say her parents, somebody had placed that question in the box, I think in the chat, that why do parents not? So we know that this is the reality, that parents feel that the daughters to be married off because we live in a patrilocal society. So if that is the case, then you need some special assistance for this woman, because she's not going to get it, otherwise when there's a problem. Suppose you're beaten on the say somewhere on the street or assaulted on the street, somebody from your family will come with you to make the complaint to the police. But suppose she wants to complain against her husband, maybe nobody from her family will come. Or even a sexual crime, maybe they will say that, your name will get spoiled, just keep quiet, or we will lose our job because you as a child of ours has been sexually harassed by our employer. So they may not come to support because they may lose their jobs. So they may say, we'll just have to bear up with it or run away from this place or something. So then they will have nobody with them. So what is the use of a special laws? What is the use of recognizing now, for instance, that stalking happens, that voyeurism, all these forms of violence against sexual offenses, if the woman does not have the ability to complain about them at the police station? So in the implementation, there are problems. So there has to be equality of results upon access and opportunity towards achieving real change for women, as you have been pointing out in your questions, that you don't see that. In many cases, yes, we still don't see that. But so long as we have to use this knowledge and make a case for, this is what was our experience. These are our documented, as some of us are academics here, we can say, these are our experiences. These are the various case studies of situations which have been faced. Therefore, there is a case for special provisions. See, because also when you make a case for special provisions, we have to point out the difference. we have to point out why it is important to have those provisions. So we have to say how women are affected. There is a law, but they can't go for that because there is this thing, nobody came to support them. So it is in this context that the case was made out for special provisions. So that's how you have that Sakshi judgment, which talks about supportive systems at the police station, at the first point of contact that the woman has to access justice. So it has to be not just enactment of laws, but it has to be result equality. And towards that, access and opportunity has also got to be evaluated to ensure the practical realization of results. In other words, whatever we ask for has to be something like special provisions, affirmative action. This picture is symbolic of that sort of, but only thing is it need not be one person or the woman facing the problem. It should be collectively as Professor Dr. Ranjana Kumari said earlier, men and women or transgenders as well, whoever, everyone should try to pull the scale in this direction so that it is on par and equal. Okay. And it is with this constitutional safeguard that you have these laws on violence against women that were enacted. And it is also possible with this constitutional safeguard to seek and have reservations for women in Parliament and Legislative Assembly to demand it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an engaging presentation. Now I would like Professor Vibhuti, ma'am, to share her views with us.
I think I would like to first of all endorse the last sentence of Dr. Albertina. What we need is more women in a more substantive and more leadership position, because the laws are there, and she has exhaustively given us a scenario of right from constitution and how constitution's fundamental rights, they have resulted in series of reforms that we have had because of the pressure from the women's movement, and also the various routes tried by women's movement, judicial route as well as the legislative route. She also gives so many important examples. The moral of the story is that we need, if there are one or two women, it just results into tokenism. So whether it's a judiciary or in actual politics or local self-government bodies, parliament, governance structures, we need to have a collective effort. And she also said that individual women cannot achieve anything. It would result into witch hunting, vilification, and also sometimes a very miserable end that it would have. What we need is a collective strength. Whatever we achieved during 80s and 90s, it was basically through the collective strength of the women's movement, pressure created from below, and also the institutional structures and systems, they were also shaken because of the women's movement, the collective efforts, and also the changes that we brought in, especially after the 33% reservation for women in local self-government bodies happened. Though local self-government bodies are at the bottom of the pyramid of the power structure, one sees a lot of things changing at a grassroots level. We have been going regularly for capacity building of women elected representatives in urban and rural local self-government bodies, because they are 33% in number, and in 18 states there are 50% of them. That has created, they have changed the scenario. But what we need is that now, even in legislature, legislative assembly, legislative council, parliament, upper and lower houses of parliament also, we need that kind of strength. Then only the moral of individual women who are fighting for justice and fighting against ending violence against women, I think that will be boosted. And we also have it's not only, she rightly said, it is not only violence against women, but we are fighting against gender-based violence. So even the sexual minorities, LGBTQIA+ community, I think about women's movement and the sexual minorities movement, they are together in fighting against this thing. But I think Advocate Albertina's experience, first of all, the experience in the court and in the women's movement, has really enriched the session very much. And we thank her for making such a lively session and the interactive session. Very, very important.
Thank you, ma'am. Now the floor is open for the questions from the audience. I would request Sonali Maheshwari ma'am to unmute herself and ask the question.
There is a request whether she can, Advocate Albertina can share her PPT with the participants.
Sure.
Uniza Kadri has requested.
Okay, I'll share it with you.
Just write your email ID so that
Yes.
Albertina.
Can you send me on that, because I miss out, this chat gets closed when the program is over. So
Yeah,
if you can send her email ID to me.
yeah. Uniza's email.
So, Sonali Maheshwari ji, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
There is one more request from Vaishali Lahiri. It would be helpful if we can have email IDs of all speakers in case we want to reach out to them. Very good presentations, Vaishali. So I think IMPRI team will have to do that. Share the email IDs of all speakers.
Okay.
So, Bhanvi, no, I'm Sonali Maheshwari. No question from my side. I think you're referring to the Q&A chat box. That was for earlier discussion which we had on that, PPT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
There is someone who's raised his hand, Satyam Tripathi. Oh, sorry. Ayushi.
Malvika Dar.
Ayushi, do you have any question? No problem. Okay, so we can also move to the next session. I'm sure a lot of questions will come also to Albertina ma'am, because the theme is also similar. So we can move to Shaluji.
Yeah, sure, sir. So now we would move to training session by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. She is an advocate, author, researcher, gender and human rights, and visiting senior fellow at IMPRI. Ma'am is going to discuss on the topic of legal safeguards and constitutional rights against violence against women. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, very good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Professor VIBHUTI Patel, and Dr. Albertina for beautifully laying down the context. Before I start my session, I will share a video with you. This is the song that The Rapist Is You in Spanish by the Chilean feminist performance. They are protesting violence against women, and this is a video of 2019. It critiques the police, the state, and the legal system, which we have been discussing for the past 2 days. It is a protest against the practice of victim blaming, as Dr. Ranjana Kumari has also said, and Dr. Albertina has also discussed, in cases of sexual assault, which criticize the women clothes to communicate that the problem lies with the action of a abuser and not the victim's clothes. So this video performance went viral and it spread across the world. So, sir, can I request you to play this video?
Yes, ma'am, you can stop the share.
Okay. So the voice is
no sound.
So voice sound नहीं आ रहा है.
Voice is coming.
The P voice.
You'll have to, I think that.
Voice not coming.
No, the voice is not coming.
Let me try again. Now is it coming?
No, sir, अभी भी आवाज नहीं आ रहा है.
Your audio is.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Can't hear.
Sorry sir, अभी भी voice का problem है.
I think some YouTube issues. Okay, I'll just share the link with Satyam. You can play it. Just sharing here. Satyam, unmute yourself also.
The voice का अभी भी problem है, so we can share the link in the maybe over the mail or something.
You are on mute.
That it is not about voice. I think Zoom is not allowing us to share the audio of the video.
Okay, sir. So can we share it maybe through the mail or something, or maybe?
Some YouTube setting. So you can go ahead. We'll try to fix that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so right now I'll start my presentation with the marginalization and oppression of women. Then what are the international law provisions such as Universal Declaration of Human Rights and major provision of CEDAW. Then situation in India despite the international provisions and the constitutional provisions, and how women have been fighting back in the patriarchal courts to seek justice. And basically the interpretation of women's rights by the court. and then marginalization as a site of resistance. So a few days back, I attended a seminar on violence against women and marginalized women and gender justice. And this seminar discussed the issues relating to various subgroups and categories of women, such as widow women, Dalit women, tribal women, refugee women, and so on. So this deliberation made me think as to, who constitute the marginalized women when women themselves are being marginalized in the male-dominated world. Women of, in all the categories or groups in comparison to men are being, relegated to margins due to systematic and structural discrimination within the society, irrespective of their hierarchical status, ranking, position. Women face violence or threat of violence in public and private spaces. So, so maybe the definition of marginalization could be, it's a social process which individuals and communities, they are, socially excluded and systematically blocked and are denied access to participate in social and political process, which are, which is basic to integrate women in the society. So the language of domination is so authoritative that it hardly allows the marginalized to raise their concerns. So the voice of those at the margins is being silenced by the dominant groups. And I'd just like to, quote here Bell Hook and how she explained the manner in which language of oppression works. So she said that, there is no need to hear your voice when I can talk about you better than you can speak about yourself. No need to hear your voice, only tell me about your pain. I want to know your story, and then I will tell you back it to you in a new way. Tell it back to you in such a way that it has become mine, my own. Rewriting you, I write myself anew. I am still the author, authority. I am still the colonizer, the speaking subject, and you are now at the center of my talk. So, this is the kind of marginalization, which is happening. And the international provisions, as we all know, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it was adopted in 10 December 1948. And it was based on French Declaration of the Rights of Man and the US Declaration of Independence. But there are the delegates, 250 delegates and advisors from 56 countries participated in making this document. So beside Europe and America, we have representatives from Latin America, Lebanon, China, Egypt, India, Panama, and various other countries. So it consists of 30 articles, and it's a milestone document. And the entire the human rights instruments, the kind of thing is based upon this document, and fundamentally it protects the human rights of all. Important thing is that how women have played an important role in making this document. Eleanor Roosevelt is one of the prominent members in the drafting committee of this declaration. But then we also have Hansa Mehta and Lakshmi Menon from India, and Begum Shaista Ikramullah from Pakistan. And we have women from Dominican Republic, Denmark, and Brazil, France, Russia, and other countries who have contributed significantly to making the draft of this document. Now, Hansa Mehta, she was a member of Indian Constituent Assembly, and she participated in the delegation between the period from 1947 to 1948. She is known for rephrasing the line, all men are born free and equal, to all human beings are born free and equal in Article 1 of the UDHR. And it is this single change that made the entire difference. Then we have Lakshmi Menon, another delegate from India, and she participated in the General Assembly's third committee in 1948. She argued for non-discrimination based on sex, as well as mention of equal rights for men and women throughout the document. She was the outspoken advocate of the universality of the human rights and strongly opposed the concept of colonial relativism that sought to deny human rights to people in the countries that were under the colonial rule. Begum Shaista Ikramullah, she was a delegate to third committee of UN General Assembly on social, humanitarian, and cultural matters. She talks about inclusion of Article 16 on equal rights in marriage as a way to combat child marriage and forced marriages. And she was born in Bengal Presidency in that time, that was in Calcutta in 1915. And then she migrated to Pakistan, and she was the Pakistan's ambassador to Morocco from 1964 to 1967. Then when we're talking about women, we have 15 women. Generally, we talk about the fathers of the Constitution, but we also have 15 women who participated in the making of the Constitution, and we call them as founding mothers. So maybe you can read more about them. So I will not, discuss about in detail right now. So beside this UDHR, we have in 1966, we have International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights that protects the right to an adequate standard of living, education, work, healthcare, and social security. In 1966, we have another international instrument called International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which talks about right to vote, right to freedom of association, fair trial, right to privacy, and right to freedom of religion. Then CEDAW, 1979, it came in, and Dr. Albertina has already discussed about that. Then in 1984, we have Convention Against Torture, and in 1989, Convention on Child Rights, and then subsequently we have various other instruments. CEDAW is ratified by India in July 1993. Basically it talks about sex-based discrimination, and as Dr. Albertina has explained, that it talks about substantive equality. The main provisions of CEDAW is generally divided into 30 articles. So maybe I'll not go into the details, we can talk about it later. But basically in 1993, we have this conference held in Vienna, which emphasized on this maxim called women's rights are human rights. This phrase was first used in 1980s and early 90s by several academicians and scholars in the Western countries. And in 1995, Hillary Clinton, in her speech, she declared that this is no longer acceptable to discuss women's rights as separate from human rights. Then we have Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. This is the 4th World Conference on Women in September 1995. And it talks about 12 areas concerning the implementation of women's human rights. It talks about women's health, violence against women, poverty, eradicating poverty, illiteracy, and promoting peace, and similar such kind of things. And then in 2000, we have MDGs, or Millennium Development Goals. And these are 8 time-bound goals to be achieved by 2015. And it includes gender equality and the empowerment of women, reduction of maternal mortality, eradicating hunger, eliminating poverty, reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, eradicating diseases, achieving universal primary education, environmental sustainability, and global partnership for development. Now, since all MDGs could not be achieved by 2015, therefore, then we have 17 global goals known as Sustainable Development Goals, which talk about achieving gender equality and social justice, eradicating hunger, eliminating poverty, reducing inequalities, and creating better environment. So, but the interesting thing which came recently is United Nations General Assembly's Resolution 75/274, which designated 10th March as the International Day of Women Judges in 2021. Now, we have been talking about, that women should be there on the in the position of power. So this is in confirmation to Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is about achieving gender equality, and Sustainable Development Goal, which is 16, which is about access to justice. Now, India was among the nations that sponsored this resolution, and this was moved in Qatar by, at the international conference by the Institute for African Women in Law. Now, this day aims to recognize the efforts and contribution made by the women judges. And this day also empower young girls who dream about, becoming judges and leaders in the community. The motto is that to achieve justice, we need more women in justice. But what is happening at the global level, how many judges are there, at the global level? Now, women remain underrepresented in the formal justice sector. Globally, you have only 27% of judges who are women. On an average, women constitute only 9% of the police force, with rate as low as 2% in some countries. In Afghanistan, the number of women is again very low. But if you talk about Central Europe and Central Asia, we have 50% of women representation in judiciary, and this is higher in Serbia, Slovenia, and other countries. The Constitution of Rwanda, it is amended in 2015. It reserved 30% of decision-making posts for women, and about half of the judges of its Supreme Court are women. In few Arab states also, there is a notable progress in closing the gender gap in the judiciary. So women represent 28% of the judiciary in Tunisia, 23.5% in Algeria, and 20% in Morocco. But what about the Indian scenario? In India, we, till now in the Supreme Court, we have 11 women judges. And in the High Court, the percentage of women judges merely 11.5%. And in the Supreme Court, currently we have we used to have 4 judges out of 33, and then one got retired. So now we have 3. So the situation of women lawyers in the country is also not any good. So out of 1.7 million advocates who are registered, only 15% are women. 3% of senior advocates in the Supreme Court and High Courts are women. The Collegium recommended 192 candidates for the High Court, and out of these 37, that is only 19% are women. But unfortunately, only 17 of these 37 recommended women were appointed. Similarly to, about the other communities, the other OBCs are constituting only 12% of the lower court judges. Across 11 states, Dalit and SCs comprise only 14%, and tribals are 12% in the subordinate judiciary. So this gender imbalance, in some states such as Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Rajasthan, they have a reservation policy for women in the lower judiciary. Generally, if you talk about Supreme Court, you have collegium, but for lower judiciary, it is a state subject. So basically, some states have provided for reservation, and these states have 40 to 50% of women judicial officer in the lower rank of judiciary. Another report states that women judges make up only 36.4% of judges who entered the lower judiciary through direct examination, and this percentage dramatically dropped to 11.7% at the level of district judges. So district judges are slightly higher in the rank than the magistrate and the civil judges. So, but the study shows that the percentage of female students who are entering the legal education in top 5 national law universities ranges from 30 to 45%. So only 20%, come to litigation, and so litigation basically remains a male-dominated profession. And if you talk about State Bar Council, we have only 2% of women who are representative there. Coming to plight of women litigants, we have only 10% of total cases in these courts which are filed by women. In the High Court, the situation is much worse. We have only 1.8% of the litigants in the High Court who are women. So Indian courts are hardly any places for women. Now that could be due to hostile work environment, it could be due to societal barriers, infrastructural deficiencies, as Dr. Albertina was saying, that the distance could be one of the problem, lack of resources, and all kind of other problems. And then, of course, the blaming the victim approach, all that adds up. If we talk about women in police force, in 2006, we have 3.5% of women who were in the police force. In 2020, this has risen slightly to 10.5. In Punjab, the numbers stood at 9.4%, and in Haryana, it is 8.9. at the officer level, if you talk about IPS, all those officers who are, working, so Haryana has a little 11.6% as compared to Punjab, which has only 7.1%. So nationally, the share of women officers stand only at 8.2%. And but the basically many of the laws such as POXO and domestic violence law and in the rape laws, it demanded that the women police officers should be there. And yet women remain not only at the clustered in the lower rung of judiciary or the police, but also the numbers are, you can see it's very less. The 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, which talks about reservation of women in panchayat. Now that is going on very good. And out of 1.3 lakhs panchayati Raj institutions in Bihar, we have over 71,000 women. In Uttar Pradesh, we have 9.1 lakhs of representative and about 3 lakhs were women. And today in 20 states, they have increased the reservation for women in PRIs to 50%. But again, at the higher level, at the decision-making level in the Parliament, in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, we know how this reservation bill, it's not being passed for so many years. The Constitution 108th Amendment Bill, about 33% of reservation for women in Lok Sabha, and 112th Amendment Bill, which is for 50% of reservation for women in urban local bodies. These are still pending for many years. But despite of all these issues we have with the legal system, the police, and the political structure, women have been wherever they are fighting fiercely for their rights. So even for the basic rights like having a sanitary pads. Now in the Supreme Court, there is a female advocates who represent the Supreme Court Advocate on Record Association. They filed a petition and they argued that there are 1,000 women lawyers and interns, as well as around 250 women staff in the court registry. And therefore they demanded from the Supreme Court that, please give us the machine. And then Supreme Court in 2017 released rupees 10 lakh to have that pad vending machine in the premises. Similarly, in Delhi High Court, this machine was installed in 2018, again, when the woman lawyer made applications and a woman judge ordered the registry to install the machine. So, and even then later on, in some of the high courts and family courts and also the jails, police station and government offices, women demanded for such kind of mechanisms. And therefore, in some cases it is being installed. In other places, we are still working out and how to get all those things. So the Ministry of Home Affairs allocated 21 millions to its gender sensitive budgets in 2019 to install 288 machines for women personnel in police and in CRPF. And recently, last week only, Supreme Court has directed the central government to implement a uniform national policy on hygiene, and which should include distribution of free sanitary pads to the students. So even for one basic thing, we have been struggling for at different places in different ways. So coming to the even to the property right, if you talk about property rights within the family, Hindu undivided family, we know the struggle behind the Hindu Succession Act in 1956, which took place when Dr. Ambedkar presented the Hindu Code Bill, and it was not passed, and then later it was we have 4 different laws, and even then the rights of women were limited. So in 2005 we got this law amended, and recently the Supreme Court in 2020 they have said that even the daughters who have unequal corporation rights in the Hindu undivided family property by virtue of their birth, they should not be included from inheritance, irrespective of the fact whether they are born before the 2005 amendment. Another judgment which was given recently last week by the Bombay High Court, which says that a daughter, even if she is given dowry, she still has a right to the family property. And the struggle of the Mary Roy case versus state of Kerala in 1986, and the entire struggle we had about the rights of Christian women within the family's property. So in that case, Supreme Court has said that Christian women in Kerala were governed by a provision of Travancore Succession Act. So a daughter can inherit only 1/4 share, as compared to son. But the Supreme Court in this case has said that Christian daughters are entitled to equal share as that of son in their father's property. So again, the struggle to get the equal right as that of son in the family property is very long and very tedious. Similarly, if we talk about the right to at the workplaces, there is a survey which was conducted in 2019, which reveals that women in India are paid 19% less than men. Their participation rate is low. We all know 9% are only in the leadership position. But this is not new. Workplace discrimination has been continued for long. And if many of you may remember the case of C.B. Muthama, she was the first Indian civil service examination she has given, and she was the first woman who joined the Indian Foreign Services. And so she challenged the discrimination within the service rules. And what are the rules, discriminatory rules? These were that Rule 18 of Indian Forest Services service rules. It says that no married woman shall be entitled as of right to be appointed to the service. And Rule 8 subsection 2 says that a woman as a member of service shall obtain the permission of the government in writing before her marriage is solemnized. At any time after the marriage, a woman member of service may be required to resign from service if the government is satisfied that her family and domestic commitments are likely to come in the way of due and efficient discharge of her duties. I mean, so these are the kind of discrimination at different levels which women are fighting against. Recently you must have heard of this judgment about women army officers getting permanent commission. But again, you have to go back to the 1981 Air India versus Nagesh Mirza judgment. Again, where Air India, which is a state-owned company, it requires from female flight attendants to retire under 3 circumstances: if they reach the age of 35 years, upon getting married, and upon first pregnancy. So again, the Supreme Court in 1981 has struck down the rule, holding that these requirements constituted the arbitrary policy and hostile discrimination, as it's against the substantive equality concept that Dr. Albertina has explained very nicely right now. So, but for the students, I would also, request you to go through this judgment of KPS Gill versus Rupin Deol Bajaj. It's yet another case which shows that how women have to struggle hard to seek dignity and justice, whatever position you are in. Even if you are working as, the top officers, you are in the top leadership position, you have to struggle for a long, and her struggle really went, for quite a decade, was more than 17, 18 years. And this incident of harassment took place in July 1988. And after that, Mr. Gill was awarded Padma Shri in 1989, though he was convicted in 2005. So for the students, you please go and read this judgment. Coming to the even to the rape cases, again we have different kinds of judgments. We already know that there are Mathura rape and Bhavri rape, Devi rape case kind of judgments which have come in where patriarchy has denied justice to women. But there are also some of the positive judgment women have got from the courts. So in Delhi Domestic Working Women Forums versus Union of India, the Supreme Court gave a broad guidelines to assist the victims of rape and hold the state accountable to provide the legal assistance to women. And they also provide for the compensation to women. Again, in another case, the Sakshi case, Dr. Albertina has just referred to, and recently the Gujarat High Court had said that, the two-finger test conducted during the course of medical examination should be deemed as unconstitutional. So there are judgments after judgments, which are, some are positive, some are negative. The women's autonomy, someone was saying about, how the parents could be, there could be violence from the parents. So the Delhi High Court, it was hearing a petition of a 26-year-old woman. She was accusing her parents of forcing her to get married against her will. And the court said that a woman cannot be pressured to get married against her choice. And if she wishes to stay away from the family, then police or her parents cannot force her against her choice. Similarly, a few years back, we have judgment in the case of Lata Singh versus Uttar Pradesh, which says Supreme Court said that there is no bar in intercaste marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act. And a woman, if she is above 18 years of age and is of sound mind, she can marry anyone she likes or live with anyone she likes. So, these are the cases, and then we have, different various cases about acid attacks, where the courts have given direction about regulating and restricting the sale of acid to curb the increasing incidences of acid attack against women. So what is working and what is not working is, it all depends. Women have been fighting. Sometimes the supportive laws and policies at different level, local, national or global level, it helps, because Vishakha judgment, if you see that, since at that point of time, India doesn't have that kind of policies. So the judgment, it says about CEDAW and, various international provisions. And then they talked about that guidelines on sexual harassment. Then sometimes you got sensitive enforcement agencies, personnel, including lawyers, police, and judges. So that may help. Strong network and support structures by the state, women's organizations, family, all kind of things have helped women. A woman's own awareness, subjectivity, and sensibility, as we have discussed in the last session, also sometimes help. Education and financial arrangements, jobs, livelihood opportunities, skill development programs, presence of institutions such as shelter homes, short stay homes, working women hostels, medical services, legal help, and all kind of socioeconomic structures have sometimes helped, and sometimes, the things have gone against. So, but marginal, the kind of oppression we are facing, and then we are using this oppression as a site of resistance. That is something which is very important. And again, I'll end with this quote from Bell Hooks, that I am located in the margin. I make a definite distinction between my oppression that is imposed by the oppressive structures and the oppression one person can use as a site of resistance, as location of radical openness and possibility. So with that, I'll just stop here and we can have more discussions.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an enriching as well as an informative session. Like now, I will request Vibhuti ma'am to present her views.
Yeah, I think thank you, Advocate Shalonigam, for making such a comprehensive presentation. All the international instruments right from 1948, where the UDHR and the series of the second, third, and fourth generation of international instruments that we got. Vienna Conference, it was not only the European women, equal number of participation was from the feminists and the women's rights activists from India, from Asia, Africa, and Latin America was also there. And all of them unanimously accepted the slogan of women's rights are human rights, and 15 days of activism from 25th November to culminating into 10th of December, mainly focusing on violence against women. That resolution was also taken in 1993. And that's why we see that the campaigns like 1 Billion Rising get so much of this thing traction. No, because it is also now aided with the social media campaign. So we see that. I think what is very important that it came out with, which gives us a lot of energy, that it was first like it was Mary Roy who fought way back in the early 70s against Travancore Christian Personal Act. And now there are thousands of women who have filed petition challenging discriminatory aspects of Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Parsi, personal laws, various which discriminate against women in the area of marriage, law, divorce, custody of child, maintenance, guardianship rights, and also right to stay in a matrimonial home, and also the parental home, and also the land rights and property rights. So you gave so many glorious examples, and I think that gives us energy that change is possible. We are also seeing so many young couples now. They are questioning extremely barbaric customary laws. We have 30,000 customary laws. Some of them, that a lot of glorification of customary laws has happened. There are certain good aspects in customary laws, but at the same time, there are extremely objectionable customary laws about the menstruation segregation, which results into violence against women, kidnapping and trafficking. There are also virginity tests, which certain communities have made it mandatory for newly married couple. So that way, we say that, and we also see that women who are in the legal profession is extremely full of misogyny, and the young women lawyers have a tough time to work in the law firm, which are demanding, extremely demanding, so many, and we saw massive Me Too movement also of the young interns in the law firm, and that's why there is also that increasing number of women in a powerful position. More and more young women, more and more women lawyers should also think of starting their own firm or a cooperative to address the question of violence against women to other women, and also their own rights, to fight for their own rights. Because now also, if you go to High Court or Session Court, even to accompany the women survivor of violence, you see that the condition of toilets, or women's toilets, or a ladies' room is not there, or daycare center, because so many young women are in the court from 10 to 5. And there is a need for daycare center. In fact, we have a scheme called Rajiv Gandhi Day Crash Scheme Yojana, and nobody is applying. There are not enough proposals. The money remains unutilized. So there are resources, but they are not used. They are not used. So I just would like to show this small film. It got the first prize in this year's Lardy Media Award. It is called Sorry, Thank You, Tata, Bye Bye. And it brings out the question of consent. Know that how women are just taken for a ride, or how girls are being just taken, their decisions are taken by either parents or husbands or boy or girlfriend. So that comes out very well. It's a film is made by Paromita Bohra. I have written I have pasted the link on the chat box. Can you see it? Sorry, thank you, Tata, bye bye. I think we can end with that. It gives a lot of energy. Can you see that? Should I start can I start at my end?
Ma'am,
is it
can you
possible?
share it again on the Zoom chat? Where have you shared it? Have you shared an email, ma'am?
Can you see it?
Yes, we can see, but not here.
गवर्नमेंट करती काम सका
मैम लिंक एक बार चैट में भेज देंगे।
हाँ?
एक बार चैट में मुझे लिंक भेज देंगे।
What? कहिए सर, क्या हुआ? सुनाई नहीं देता? हेलो?
मैम वो इंटरनेट में आपके तरफ स्लो है, आप एक बार लिंक शेयर कर देंगे मुझे चैट बॉक्स?
मैंने किया है ना चैट बॉक्स में सर।
ओके नैना, सी
यस सर,
चैट बॉक्स है,
या
सेंड इट टू मी।
अरे
Let me know if sound comes on.
गवर्नमेंट करती काम झकास। पचास 78 फिर बाजी फिटकी 2024
दादी मौसी नानी दीदी तुमसे पूछा? अरे ना बेटा कभी ना पूछा, कोई ना पूछा। सर शाम भोर कर शोर शोर चलती हुई बड़ी बत्तियां, बड़ी जोर जोर हुई बोर बोर इग्नोर कर क्यों मेरी पत्तियां, हमारी हम तुम्हारे न पूछे ही बन गए सारे, जो मैं रखूं मांगे अपनी सॉरी थैंक यू टाटा बाय बाय। पूछोगे मेरी मर्जी कब करोगे मेरी राय बाय, जो मैं रखूं मांगे अपनी सॉरी थैंक यू टाटा बाय बाय। इस देश विकास के सपने में गायब लड़की की आजादी जब भी आई रखते सब शादी। शादी शादी से नाम नहीं मुझे कर और भी सपने, एक महीना हरे पूछे कि बच्चे हमारे तुम्हारे पूछे बन गए सारे सारे, कब पूछोगे मेरी मर्जी कब जानोगे मेरी राय मांगे अपनी सारी थैंक यू टाटा बाय बाय। मेरी मर्जी कब जानोगे मेरी राय बाय।
खबर बनी खतरनाक है, हमसे पूछा कहे है नारी, गली गली और पारी पारी, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ सेल्फी विद बेटी खिंचवाओ, पेमेंट का दे दिया बेटे बेटे फिर भी पूछा फिर भी खटपट, नेशन वोट फिल्मो इस मजमत इस वॉच
ये तो हो गया too much। अपनी दिल की बात सुनाए लो जी सुन लो कान लगाए अपनी दिल की बात सुनाए लो जी सुन लो कान लगाए करते मैं मारू गप्पा गली गली पे ऊंचा डब्बा बाजू सीधी उतर जाऊं जिसको चाहूं उसको पाऊं, टॉयलेट जाओ और मस्ती उठाना समझ पड़ी या करूँ रिपीट, तुम सिद्धि तो मैं भी जीत, सीधी बात ना डोली डंडा, मेरी लाइफ तो मेरा फंडा, मेरी लाइफ सब मेरा फंडा, मेरी लाइफ सब मेरा फंडा। माँ से कहूँ मैं जो दिल की बात बाबा कहते हैं मुझसे, अब लाल कर ले या पीले हाथ, आजाद है खुल के जी ले। Don't push away the mercy, sorry, thank you, tata, bye bye.
It's such a nice movie, such a nice thing. We should have a kind of a platform where we could share these kind of documentaries, and it should be available to all, so that we shouldn't miss all these kind of things.
So, ma'am, there is one question from Charuji. I would like Charuji to unmute herself and ask her question.
Charuji, you can also
Yeah.
take last week's question. We missed you last.
My question is that you, in one of the slides, you mentioned about supportive law and policies to empower us towards justice. So I want to know more about such supportive laws and policies that that I can know as a common citizen, and also share among friends and family, so that they know, like we are told to say no means no, but when to say no, मतलब क्या नहीं होना चाहिए कि हम बोल सके no. So and patriarchy always brainwashes us that there is no way to go, nothing to do, you just shut up and stay there. So so what are the laws and policies that empower us as women to fight injustice because of patriarchy and whatever is wrong against like the violence against women?
So should we take more questions, or like?
Shalu ma'am, you can take, or Albertina ma'am can take.
Yeah, sure. VIBHUTI ma'am would like to add something.
Yeah, I think Shalu ma'am has given a very comprehensive view of all the protective laws. The problem is that now, because of the awareness which Women Development Cell or the Women's Organization and also the social media is doing about these protective laws, women and girls, even girls, why would I say, we work with the young girls who are below 18, but they have also become alert about their rights. In fact, during the pandemic, 375,000 girls, they made distress call to helpline 1098 and also 191, which was a National Commission for Women, just to save them from trafficking and forced child marriage. So I think that that's quite commendable that 7th standard, 8th standard, 10th standard girl approaches the district commissioner's office, it approaches the headline. They could save only 12,000 girls out of 3,75,000, 25% were adolescent girls, but at least those 12,000 girls were saved because the mechanism and the support system immediately reacted. What happened in 1993 when Bhavri Devi tried to stop child marriage? She was gang raped, and then we got the Vishakha Directive. Now, from 1993 to 2023, the change has come because of this kind of awareness that is happening. What we need is the safeguards, legal safeguards that we have. About that, I think we should make our students and our children aware about it right from the early childhood. In fact, I was invited by a school to speak on Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Now, even 7th standard girl knew the sex ratio. Before I could say 914, they said that. No, so that is because now it is integrated into the textbooks. So I think awareness is very, very important to for anyone to empower, so that they start arguing, they start asking for their rights, that what you are doing. Now children are telling, the young girls are telling their parents that I will inform my teacher. My teacher will inform the State Commission for Women or a police that you are forcing me into marriage. No, so I think it is very important. The same thing about the DV Act, that under the DV Act, all 5 services you are entitled to. One is a protection officer, second one is counseling, third one is emergency shelter home for minimum for 15 days. If you have a child, then child care, the child's needs, and also the police has to be there. Like so many state governments have created helplines as well as the emergency call, where within half an hour police has to come, intervene and rescue you. So I think wherever such awareness is there, that's why we need both. Gender sensitization of the police, gender sensitization of the administration, citizens, and also the women, so that they also start demanding their rights. So it's very important. And that's why these 2 presentations today, which were made, are extremely important for all of us, because now it's like a TOT. You are the training of the trainers. So you yourselves are very active in the community. So we have to spread this thing and bring awareness about it wherever we are, whether in our housing society or a gated community or wherever we are working, that this awareness is very important.
Like Vibhuti ma'am, in the first session, you told like if the police doesn't write an FIR, then they are unlawfully doing that. Even Albertina ma'am told something about stalking.
Yes. And after 2013, they can be even suspended. After Nirbhaya tragedy, if the police doesn't write the FIR when of a survivor or the victim of violence, then it is a dereliction of duty. There is a special provision in Indian Evidence Act that it would be punishable offense, and the police officer can be suspended. We have seen in several recent cases also during the lockdown where they did not write the FIR and they were suspended, and they were accountable. So accountability is very much there. Even you can use RTI so many times. Right to information is also being used. Complaint to State Commission for Women, National Commission for Women can also be made. And now online complaint is also possible. So because all these NRI marriages, in that women survivors or women victims have made online complaints, and the National Commission for Women responded to it. Even Home Ministry responded. It's across.
Vibhuti ma'am, I want to know such laws, because when things go bad, that's not the time when our brain works to, find the law, find things around it. Like, so I want to know such laws that I can spread amongst my friends and family and also use myself in case something goes wrong, rather than being hopeless ki nothing will happen. I wanted to know.
And that's why I think even for technical vocational training programs and all that, when one module is on gender-based violence, all these women who are plumber, fitter, turner, who are trained as a electrician or this thing, YWC has started its course. And the moment we included the module on how to address violence against women, these women, they just started, earlier they were silently suffering. Now they give back, whether it is in the domestic arena or at the workplace or sexual harassment, they give back. You saw even the young women garment workers in Bangalore. They came out in this thing because they were very, very, first of all, they were not even allowed to go to toilet or they were not given lunch break, and they were also sexually harassed. So they came out because of the legal awareness that it is a crime against state. Constitution of India guarantees safety and security for women. So all the laws that have come up, and I think they are there in the PPT of Dr. Shalnigam, because she has given chronologically, she has given right from 1948 and all the international covenants and this thing, and the national laws also around from 1975 that we started. So many, even Equal Remuneration Act we have, which talks of equal remuneration, equal treatment, and equal rewards. So treatment part, where you are treated discriminatory, that is also taken care of by that law, which was in 1976.
Yeah, there is also a provision of, right now, I think they have come up with this provision of EFIR and zero FIR. So if the state, different states have different rules. So you have to go to your state website and check the rules.
Yeah.
But there are provisions of EFIR and zero FIR. And all the laws are listed on the Ministry of WCD. If you go the Google site, you will find all the acts which are being loaded up there, and even on the NCW website. So like, the laws are there, but the thing is that we have to question ourselves, the patriarchy, which she was talking about, that we have to question the patriarchy. Like, even I have to, somehow see that, okay, maybe my response is patriarchal or not, or even within my own family, I still have, a lot of discussions with my parents. So, it's all about, how the patriarchy is working. And every day, I think we need to question and challenge all those things, from the feminist lens. So that is one thing,
And also the demystification of laws is done by, in a very simple language, by the posters and short films made by partners in law and development. PLD website, everything is freely downloadable. Same thing, all those short films which Majlis has made about violence against women, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It's like this whole music ballet that also you saw. That is more for a younger crowd. But even the demystification of laws done through cartoon strips, through manuals, so many manuals the National Commission for Women have produced both in Hindi and English on trafficking, on domestic violence, on Indian Evidence Act, on the rape law, on sexual harassment workplace. They all are easily downloadable. And we also, like in IMPRI's repository also we can put, and I think some of them are there even in your dossier, which we have given, this thing. So resource material in a simple language is also there, but that Ministry of Women and Child Development website also has actual text of the laws. If you click on each one, you get the complete text of the laws. Yeah.
Vibhuti ma'am, I think what Charu ma'am is also asking with laws and policies and schemes, that most of these policies are also meant for poor women or poor households, like all of our welfare schemes. So that is where also disparities come, for middle class and other, you have to have, and it becomes costly. Yes, most of the schemes are also for poor people. So we see the quality and infrastructure and the manpower. So badly.
Schemes are different from law. The laws are for every Indian citizen, and the schemes are for women from but that gender-based violence, all the centrally sponsored schemes for gender-based violence or a Nirbhaya fund, they are meant for any survivor of violence. In fact, the acid attack, the budget is very high. The support to acid attack survivors is, it can go right up to 20 lakhs. For them, because they have to undergo various surgeries, plastic surgeries and all that. So it all depends on how the system is working, because in Mumbai, like Maharashtra, we have Majlis, which facilitates all these schemes through all the Manodhairya scheme is facilitated by the organization, which judiciously sees to it that the fund just doesn't remain parked in the ministry, but it is also used very effectively and efficiently. So it is there. Schemes are for below poverty people, but the laws are for everybody. And there are certain laws on gender-based violence which are backed by budget. For example, laws on acid attack survivor, laws on transgender persons bill, because the sex reassignment surgery is also very expensive. And third were the laws on domestic violence, where all 5 service providers have to respond. That means protection officer, counselor, shelter, emergency shelter home, for the child's protection, or if woman is with child, and also criminal justice system, where the legal aid cell of every state, every district is also given funding, which is called legal aid fund. It is backed by the union budget. They are not using it, is a different issue because people are not forcing them. But where the community is very active, they force legal aid cell not to just remain a paper organization, but to action.
So we have also mentioned state legal service authorities. There is an act called National Legal Service Authority Act, and under that there is a state legal service authorities which are there in every state. So they provide legal aid and legal awareness and legal aid counseling. It's their job. So, but the thing is, yeah, again, implementation is a problem. So the infrastructure is there, but the thing is that we have to go and we have to demand them to perform. That is one thing I think we have to constantly raise our voice and demand, these institutions to perform. That is, I think that is important, because it's in Delhi, we have just 18 protection officers for so many cases. So I think, because again, we have to go to to the state authorities and say that, okay, you give us more protection officers, give us more, whatever the provisions which are there in the law.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Before concluding the session, I would request Vibhuti ma'am to share her closing remarks.
So, okay. Yeah, I think today we had a very lively session, because both of them are Albertina is a very long tenure, both as a legal activist and a feminist, and she brought out very important understanding on how the affirmative action and the substantive equality, what we have is a formal equality in the constitution on the paper, but for substantive equality, how equity becomes very important. Creation of an environment and the ecosystem which makes equality possible. That was a very important, that was the thrust of Dr. Albertina's presentation. And Shalonigam, she started with the global instruments that we have to address violence against women, and also the whole history of gender-based laws protecting protective provisions in the laws for gender-based violence. And I think it was a very important, even the questions and the interventions that happened, the opinion poll that Dr. Albertina had also organized. I think that was very important in clarifying some of the ideas. And I think demystification of law becomes very important. And that's what we achieved today in both the sessions. And I congratulate, and even Dr. Ranjana Kumari, she set the tone because she has also been primarily an activist in the women's movement. And she shared some of the important ups and downs in the women's movement's fight against gender-based violence. So I think we had a very rewarding day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the end of the day 2 of a 4-week online certificate training course on ending violence against women, awareness of laws and policies in India, I, Bhanvi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Gender Impact Study Center, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 2 session, Dr. Ranjana Kumari ji for her special remarks, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, and Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida ji for taking out their valuable time and giving an opportunity to the participants to learn from this online certificate program. I would like to specially thank Professor Vibhuti Patel for chairing the session. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you next Saturday, that is 22nd of April at 4 p.m. for our third day of the certification course by distinguished experts Ms. Nandini Sarkar, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, and Advocate Selin Thomas. They will discuss the theme of ensuring the safety of women in homes. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.